friends, and welcome back to another exceptional edition of SportsZone. I am the host of the program, apparently, Ben Florence. We got a great show for you on tap. We're going to start with a little Master Talk. We got Dylan Show with us, as always, on our penultimate episode of the year. And we got Brian Wackamo making his debut on the show.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. We're going to start a little Augusta discussion. As you may have known, Jordan Spieth, the precocious 21-year-old, the young Texan, dominating all week, leading wire to wire, finishing tied for the record of the lowest 72-hole score at minus 19. He almost got to, was it minus 19?
Minus 18.
Minus 18.
He was at minus 19.
The record was would have been minus 19. He almost got there.
Bogeyed the last hole.
That's right. Dylan, how dominant of a performance was this for Mr. Spieth, and does this cement him really as the next big star in the world of golf?
This was an extremely dominating performance by Jordan Spieth. Like you said, he was 21 years old. He's the second youngest player behind Tiger to do it in 1997. But I wouldn't go as far as putting it as this cements him as the most dominant or second dominant player, like you said. There's a lot of articles floating around there that finally Rory McIlroy has found his rival over the next few years. Spieth's been kicking around for a while. He's been a pretty good golfer over the past couple of years, and this one especially puts him up there. I'd like to see a couple more top finishes up there. I mean, there's been plenty of people who won and done in pretty much any sport, including golf. One tournament doesn't cement you in history as one of the greatest golfers ever.
Well, of course, Spieth last year at the Masters really introduced himself to the nation. Yeah. He performed really well, won a tournament late last year, won a tournament earlier this year. Yeah. So been playing really well, Brian. So what are your thoughts on Mr. Spieth and the future of him in golf?
Well, I think Spieth shows that he won Rookie of the Year 2013. He had come on the scene before that, even as an amateur from Texas. But you can say he's America's answer to Rory McIlroy. He and Rory are number 1 and 2 in the world golf rankings. First time the top two are under 25. He finished second the week before in a playoff in Houston. He won a tournament earlier this year. He won in Australia. He's showed that he's a top golfer, and he's only 21. He can only go up from here. He played well in the last Masters, so he's shown that he can do well in majors, and he's shown that he can do well in other tournaments, even top-tier tournaments. So I think he's kind of America's first real answer in a while to Europe's challenge with Rory there.
Yeah, and so, you mentioned, kind of the big names in golf. You mentioned Rory, who had his best Masters finish after several years. He was leading a few years ago, then he had that just atrocious final day. But really, one of the big storylines besides Jordan Spieth was the return of Tiger Woods. Not a lot of people, myself included, had really high hopes for him. He was playing well. He hit the on the backs, or he hit the tree root when he was coming out of, and really, he said he popped the joint out and then he popped it back in, which the interviewer Bill McAtee was like, really? But
most Tiger thing you could do.
Absolutely. So Brian, I'll go back to you. Tiger, could you say that to some people he perhaps exceeded expectations, really competing for the win with how well Jordan Spieth started from the get-go may have been a little much, but could we potentially see Tiger? He's not going to play for a little bit, about a month or so. But could you say, is it fair to say that he's may have found his game back after such a brutal start to 2015?
I mean, it's hard to say. Tiger's gone through so much injury trouble, both through his career. He's put his body through so much. He's switched his swing so many times. But I think this kind of shows that the twilight years of Tiger's PGA career might end up being something like that, where he can sometimes compete for majors or top tournaments. And a lot of times he might win one every once in a while, but I don't think he's going to be an elite level performer because he's up in age, he's gone through so much injury-wise that his knees are basically dead at this point in time. That I don't know how much you can expect Tiger to stay at a high level of competition, and instead you might just see him as someone who can possibly compete in every once in a while for top tournaments.
And Dylan, quickly, Tiger, when you look at his last several years, really Augusta, even as he hasn't won the tournament in a decade, he's performed really well there of late, but could this potentially be a sign, as I posed to Brian, that Tiger may have found his confidence and may have found his game again?
I think yes, and I think part of the fact that I think it was an over a 2-month layoff since his last tournament. I think it was 63 days since this one. And he, like you said, performed so poorly at 2015 so far. This tournament he did pretty well in. Hopefully he can use this as a starting point to kind of continue the rest of 2015 on a good note.
All right, and we're going to continue the rest of this show on a good note. You are watching SportsZone. Stay tuned for some more greatness.
Hello and welcome back. This is SportsZone, as well as your favorite segment and mine. This is Getting to Third Base. And as if you've noticed, we've got a full panel today, guys. We got 4 of us.
Yeah.
I'm Dylan Cho. We got Dan, Aviva, and Deepak returning for a special episode right here. So as we all know, season is underway. We're about a week in right now, so it's too early to kind of base the entire season off of what we've seen so far. But what we're doing for this show is we're going to pick the biggest surprises, as in positive surprises, things that we didn't think that were going to happen but are happening right now. Teams, players, storylines, whatever it is. Dan, what's your biggest surprise so far?
My biggest surprise is the Atlanta Braves, and they've been the subject of our conversation for the last few weeks because we all thought they were going to tank by selling all their best players, and then they are sitting at 6-1. They swept Miami. They took 2 out of 3 from the Mets. Miami, who I thought was going to be really good this year. And so, the Atlanta Braves sitting in first place, up by, I believe, 2 games, is my big surprise team this year. They've performed really well.
Aviva?
I agree with Dan. Atlanta is my big surprise. For the last few weeks, we were talking about how horrible they were going to be, and then now they're first with 6-1. It's like, what's going on?
Yeah. And Deepak, what's your surprise?
I'm going to go with the team that these guys actually disagreed with me on, in the Royals. And I know the disagreement is, they made the World Series last year. Like, it's not a surprise. A lot of people are still up in the air as to whether they were a one-and-done kind of team, if it was like, that magic year for them. No. I think they're actually for real. The surprise, though, is that they're 7-0. They're the last undefeated team. They also lost complete game James. Big game James, sorry.
Big
not
game
even complete
James.
James. They lost James Shields. So your number 1 starter is gone. People are like, all right, now their rotation really rests in the hands of a guy who's, 22 years old, and you're Donovan Ventura. How are they going to respond? They just played the Angels, and they swept the Angels. So, I mean, they're a surprise team for me. A bat that I think has obviously carried them far is Salvador Perez. That's not to say they don't have an electrifying lineup. They definitely do. We're going to see if Moustakas and Hosmer's postseason performances can carry over and solidify who they are as players throughout the year.
Of course. I would have to agree that Royals are definitely a surprise, but I'm going to side more with Dan and Aviva on this one. The fact that not just us, but ESPN, Sports Illustrated, everyone's predicting them to either finish 4th or last in the NL East, and they're leading it right now at 6-1. They traded away pretty much any big-name player that you've heard of on their team, pitchers, outfielders, second base, everything that they've done. They've completely retooled their entire lineup, and they're sitting at 6-1. I don't think it's going to last. I don't think that they're going to be able to carry this momentum, especially once the NL East, once some injuries that they have. The Nats have a couple injuries. Phillies, Mets are kind of in a rebuilding. Miami's going to take a little bit to kind of get used to their team. So I think the Braves are going to end up sinking. They're just carrying hot momentum right now. But as in for another one that we talked about briefly, I'm just going to throw this out to you guys. Cleveland Indians. Sports Illustrated picked them to win the World Series this year. They were on the cover of Sports Illustrated, but they're not doing so hot. I know Deepak brought this up earlier. They're missing their catcher, Yan Gomes. 21 home runs last year. Big impact bat for them. Dan, is it a cause for concern so far for the Indians?
We kind of talked about in the lead into this segment and that it's kind of too early to really freak out. And they're 2-4. Yeah, it's not great, but it's been a week. You gotta let them, figure it out. The loss of Gomes will hurt, but they've got some good players there. Jason Kipnis, Michael Brantley. They got 2 great starting pitchers in Corey Kluber, who won the Cy Young last year, Carlos Carrasco, who they I believe just extended. It'll come. I think it'll come with time. They just gotta figure it out, work out the kinks. It's still too early to panic.
Yeah. Good point right there. Aviva, too early to panic? Or if you're the Indians, you lose a player, you're predicted to do so well, do you start panicking?
No, I don't think you should panic. It's only been a week. The they play 182 games. You can't 62 games. Sorry. Like 7 games, it's nothing. So I think their team dynamic will slowly get better, and it's way too early.
And Deepak,
Yeah,
do you agree with the two of them that it's way too early to panic?
I do. Cleveland has been a solid team the past 2 years. They didn't make the playoffs last year, but they actually.
But they
did.
were close.
They were.
They were
They
right
have-
in there in that conversation,
Exactly.
especially in a very tough division with the Royals
Really
and
tough,
the
really
Tigers.
tough. And they have Terry Francona at the helm. I mean, you can't forget
Terry.
that big piece right there. Jan Gomes is going to hurt them a little bit. They're going to slip just a tad bit. But no, with a young lineup, a team that, like all others, has to mesh, they'll be fine.
Well, you heard it here first, guys. This has been Getting to Third Base, talking about the up so far of the season. We'll see what we're talking about next week when we have another season or another week behind in our belts. This has been Getting to Third Base. Keep watching SportsZone.
Hello and welcome back to Sports Zone. This is going to be our football segment. We're going for 2. Not a whole lot in the news, but we're going to hit you with some NFL draft talk just a few weeks away. I'm Dan. I got Vince and Matt with me today. And as usual, the focal point of the draft is always quarterbacks. They may be the most important position on the field. Everyone builds a team around their quarterback, and there's 2 really good ones this year. Jameis Winston out of Florida State, Marcus Mariota out of Oregon. So Vince, we're going to start with you. Both these guys are considered to be probably top 10 draft picks. Would you say, who would you have above the other? And how far would the second player fall at furthest?
I think I've got Jameis Winston going number 1 overall to the Buccaneers. I think they've expressed that he's the guy that they want to go after, and I think, honestly, that they've pegged it right. I think he's more pro-ready. We've seen with quarterbacks who come out of Oregon style kind of struggle in the NFL. I kind of am in the minority. I think Marcus Mariota is going to be a bit of a bust. I think whoever drafts him is making a bit of a mistake, but there's not a lot of other quarterbacks out there, so maybe out of necessity they'll take him. But Jameis Winston's he's more mobile than you would think given his size, but I feel like his size lends better to the NFL, taking more hits. I think he goes number 1, and realistically, I feel like the Titans are looking to move out of the second spot, so I could see Washington or the Jets at 6 moving up to take Mariota.
All right, Matt, do you agree Winston over Mariota?
Yeah, I feel that, as he was saying, Winston's more pro-ready. All the signs have been showing that Tampa Bay would prefer Jameis Winston over Mariota. I feel that some people have brought it to like a foregone conclusion. Anything can happen from now until then, but it looks like Winston's going to end up in Tampa Bay.
All right, so from there, we'll move maybe out of the top 10. We talked about maybe the Jets or Washington wanting to push up to get Mariota. Is there a team that's not in the top 10 right now that you guys could see moving up to take a quarterback? We'll start with Matt.
There's been this rumor floating around that San Diego is looking to draft up to 2 and take Mariota from the Titans, and the Titans would then maybe take Phillip Rivers. Because they were the rumors that Rivers doesn't want to stay in San Diego anymore. He wants to go on the move, try with another team. And I don't know if that's the most likely scenario, but I think it's certainly one of the more interesting things that could play out. Other names that have come up, the Eagles. Maybe if the Titans pass on them, they would trade for one of the 3rd or 4th. They could trade with the Jaguars or Raiders to get Mariota, but I don't know. It's kind of a toss-up as to where Mariota is going to end up. I just don't think he's going to end up in Tennessee.
Vince, do you agree? You think the Titans are moving out maybe a different team, or do you agree with either Philly or San Diego pushing up to get Mariota?
I think based on what we talked about or what we've seen, it's not realistic that anybody out of the top 6, I think, will move up to get a quarterback, but outside of the top 6, it's probably best to expect maybe the Chargers or maybe the Eagles move up. But I think those guys don't make it out of those top 6. I think they'll shuffle around a little bit. And if Mariota does drop to 3 or 4 with the Jaguars and the Raiders sitting there, I think they're definitely, because they have Bortles and Carr respectively, will be looking to move that pick and get a lot in return. So I think the teams in the top 6 someone's going to wind up with Mariota. I don't really see him falling too far outside of that spectrum.
All right, so I think we still have a little bit of time. Money on the line, you have to pick a landing spot for Mariota if we all accept that Winston likely going to Tampa, staying in Florida, which is probably useful for him. But if you had to pick a landing spot for Marcus Mariota, any team in the league, Vince, who's your team?
I think it's probably going to be the Jets. We know they're looking to solidify their quarterback position. They've been pretty high on both Winston and Mariota. Have had visits with both of them, I believe. I feel like that's just going to be the landing spot to try and solidify their quarterback position at a mutual interest.
Matt, agree, disagree?
I agree. I feel that if the Titans aren't blown out of the water by any offers from a team outside the top 10, then they might draft a defensive player or one of the probably a defensive player. Leonard Williams out of USC is a good option, and Mariota would probably fall down to 6 in New York.
All right, and that is all the time we have. You heard it here. Marcus Mariota might be heading to Jersey. Good news for me. I'm a Jets fan. But that is all the time we have for Going for Two. Stay tuned. More SportsZone after this.
Throwing it up. My name is Jaron Berman, and I'm with my fellow colleagues Brian and Matt. I'm going to be talking some NBA action today. First, we're going to discuss the Golden State Warriors, who I believe just won their 67th game, which makes them the first team, I believe, since the Dallas Mavericks were upset by the Golden State Warriors just about 10 years ago in the first round. Guys, what are your thoughts on? I'll start with you, Brian. What are your thoughts on the Warriors season thus far?
The Warriors are great. No one thought that Steve Kerr was going to make that much of an impact, or that Steph and Clay were going to step up that much. Clay dropped 37 in 18 minutes and a half last night, which is pretty insane. But I think they've shown that they are the best team in the NBA by far and away. They play top defense. They have great offense. They have players who can defend and create shots unlike no one else. Stephen Curry can get hot at any point in time. That's just not even including Clay or anyone else on there. And I think they've shown that they're the team to beat in the NBA this year.
Right. Now, Matt, do you think you're going to suffer like a first round upset like the Mavericks once did from these same Warriors, or do you think that's just not possible at all?
I mean, the West is very competitive. It's a conference with a lot of depth, but I don't see the Warriors being upset. They just are such a well-rounded team. They're deep. They can beat you on both ends. I don't think the Thunder or Pelicans, depending on who wins on Wednesday, I don't think either of them really have much of a chance in the first round, especially considering the Warriors are so dominant at home.
Right. Now, of course, this leads into our second topic, which is the playoff races that are about to come up. We're on the 82nd game today. So, guys, what do you? Sorry, you, Brian, again. What do you think? What should we expect in the playoffs? Do you think there's going to be any upsets? Do you think we're going to see a lot of drama? What are your thoughts on it so far?
Well, I think you can see a lot of drama when it comes to the West. There's so many good teams in there from top to bottom. Even if the Pelicans or the Thunder make it in there, I think there can be anything can happen in that. The East is so top heavy. The Hawks, my team, they are running away. They've run away with the top seed, and the bottom 3 teams are terrible. So I think upsets are a lot less likely in there. But I think there can still be a lot of drama in those top 4 teams in the East. In the West, who knows? Anything can happen.
Absolutely. Now, Matt, I'm going to throw this one to you. Now, the Eastern Conference, as we just kind of alluded to, has not been that strong this year. Do you think we can see some great playoff drama? Which series are you excited to see from there?
I mean, I think that it's a very top-heavy conference. I like the teams at the top. I like the Hawks. I think they're a very well-rounded team. People are calling them I think Brian was telling me that people are calling them the Spurs of the East.
Yeah. Right.
A very talented team. I feel like it's going to come down to the Hawks and the Cavs in the conference finals, and that's what I'm excited to see because it's 2 very different teams squaring up. A team dominated by stars in Cleveland, and then a team with 4 All-Stars, but no big names. I think the most no one scored 40 points once for the Hawks this season. People barely scraped 30 points. I think it's everyone just a very well-rounded team. I think that's the matchup to look for in the East.
Okay, now I think we just have a few extra moments, so I'm just going to throw both to you quickly. Brian, what do you think is your MVP pick for this year?
I got to go with James Harden. He's carried that Houston team to a great record without Dwight Howard for most of the year.
Absolutely, and Matt?
I'm going with Steph Curry. I think he's just elevated the Warriors to another level, and he's been unstoppable. You just can't defend Steph Curry.
All right, two excellent choices, and that's the end of our segment. This has been Throwing It Up. We'll see you guys later.
And we welcome you back from an exciting commercial break. This is our favorite segment, Thumbs Up, Thumbs Down. As we wrap up the second to last episode of the semester, we've got a special guest back. Loyal viewers of the show, a.k.a. my parents,
And mine.
may recognize the person to my left, Mr. Deepak Bhagat. Welcome back.
Great to be back.
Fresh from being across the pond,
Yep.
which is exciting stuff. But yeah, thumbs up, thumbs down. We're going to head it over to Dylan. What do you got?
All right, thumbs up is gonna first go to this guy right here. No one in SportsZone except maybe Dan knew he was showing up tonight. He just kind of walked in and was just like, "Hey guys, what's on the rundown?" That was it. Pops in for an episode here. It's great to see him back from south of London. I'm assuming he'll talk about that more. But thumbs up to that guy. Thumbs up to the Red Sox starting off the season really hot. Leading the AL East right now in a weaker AL East, but I'm liking the pieces coming together. Hanley Ramirez is starting off great. Mookie Betts, huge thumbs up to that guy. Had a monster game the other day. Robs a home run from Bryce Harper, hits a 3-run home run by himself, and steals 2 bases on 1 play, setting himself into scoring position at third. So thumbs up to that guy. Those are my thumbs up for this week. A little bit lesser on the side, but thumbs down. We're gonna go AU. It's getting hot, AU. We know that there's a 7 or 10 or 3-week period, I don't even know what it is, where the temperature has to be above a certain temperature before they switch to air conditioning. Well, during the overnight last night, when we have 150 people in a room, air conditioning is really important. So turn on that AC. Thumbs down to that for not having that plugged in yet. But yeah, that's it. That's all my thumbs down. Nothing too bad in the world of sports right now.
Excellent. All right. Sir, the returning vet, what do you got?
I gotta go thumbs up. I mean, to being back here, being at SportsZone for the second to last episode, sitting in between these two guys who hopefully will make a return sometime next year, just because. Thumbs
not.
up. Probably not. Thumbs up again to. Baseball is here. The Phillies at one point, despite a poor opening day loss to the Red Sox.
What was the final score?
8-0. I was there too, and it was a wonderful time.
Yeah, it was.
Thumbs up, though, to the fact that the Phillies were above 500 for a day for the first time since last May. Yeah. Thumbs up to Jordan Spieth winning the Masters. Yeah. 21 years old, and then immediately, because he's from Texas, goes to a Rangers game, throws out the first pitch, and it was a pretty good pitch. I was shocked. And then, really, I can only think of one thumbs down right now, and that's thumbs down to, or two. Thumbs down to the Penguins.
Yep.
Making the playoffs. You may recall from 2 years ago, I said a certain phrase here on SportsZone.
Well, they didn't see it, of course.
They didn't see it.
We cut it. We cut that out.
Oh, we cut it. It was such a good segment, too. We know that. I was booted off the segment for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, thumbs down to the Penguins for making the playoffs. They're going to get absolutely demolished, though, by the Rangers. So I can't believe I'm saying that, but go Rangers. Ooh. Thumbs down to all the bad teams in the NBA, apart from the Sixers. Yeah, because
New Orleans, though.
New Orleans, yeah. Despite the fact that New York has won 2 games, it doesn't help us. We still have the 3rd worst record. That's not that great to hear. I'd rather have the worst record, as well as, we have those potential other first-round picks from LA, who is the 4th worst team, Miami, who is, I think right now, actually the 8th worst team, and Oklahoma City, who probably, they're not going to make the playoffs. And so, we're not going to get those picks. So, yeah, thumbs down to that. Ben?
All right, so first thumbs down is going to go to one of my roommates. He's a big New York Knicks fan. No, it is not Jaron Berman.
I feel so sorry.
You
for
know,
you
Jaron
guys.
Berman does live in the building, so we got to give a little Burks love. My roommates, at least one of them, made him watch the Reggie Miller 30 for 30, the winning time one, with all the Spike Lee stuff, and he had never watched it before. And he got mad when I was kind of mocking John Starks, and as you may know, I'm a Nets fan, enjoying that 8th place. But, and then he was like, yeah, well, John Starks would probably be a third, top 3, top 5 player in Nets history, which is just comically not true. Let's be honest, the Nets don't have a great history. Nobody's going to beat the bush around that. But, I mean, John Starks, a fine NBA player, but, I mean, let's cut the nonsense. Second thumbs down, another New York-centric, Channel 11, Pix 11, which is a great channel in New York. They're now the new home, over-the-air home for the New York Yankees. And, on Friday night, it was the Yankees-Red Sox game that went for like 48 hours.
Yeah.
And at one point, the Channel 11 actually ran out of advertising. So they had to show like a camera shot behind a home plate of the field. They literally ran out of advertising, PSAs, what have you. So really not much more to say about that. Thumbs up to Stanley Cup playoffs are starting tomorrow on Wednesday. Maybe the best postseason of all sports. I may just say that right now. And do I have any? If I have any more thumbs up, you can follow me on Twitter for that at bflow360. But for everybody here at SportsZone and all the true patriots here at ATV, go to AUATV for more. This is SportsZone. Thank you for watching. We will see you next week for our finale. How about that?
Yeah.
Good stuff. Take care.
Suit up.